Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Declined series. So in this series we're following this very nice opening from White's and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing with our Queen's Gambit Declined studies in the so-called Albin Countergambit. The Albin Countergambit we have started recently. First I've introduced to you the so-called Lasker trap that is possible. It's a very sharp tactic that it's possible in an early stage of the game. Black is playing this very annoying tactic and wins games many times in this Albin Countergambit stuff. But today we're analyzing different ideas now for White and for Black. I think in this video you'll see the most important traps that are also possible. Not only the Lasker trap is possible in the Albin Countergambit, there are so many beautiful and dirty tactical shots that you can play for White perspective, but also Black can pull off really some beautiful ideas in the Albin Countergambit. So that's why in this video we'll see now these ideas, but we'll see also the common mistakes that White and Black are making many times. So there are many times the same mistakes that both of these sides are making in the continuation of the game. So that's why we should know about them and of course try to avoid them. So let's check out now again what is the Albin Countergambit and what are now the new tactical goals and what are also the common mistakes that both sides can make. So here of course let's go back. The move order is of course d4 d5, and then after c4 Black is launching the Albin Countergambit with the move e5. My recommendation is still here to take d takes e5, and after move d4 we can play immediately knight to f3. This is a normal idea, and then we can play something like knight to d2, knight to b3, and then also a battle for the d4 square. So here knight to c6 can be played, and now many times you see White playing the so-called fianchetto variation with the move g3, playing then afterwards bishop to g2. It's a normal idea because e3 we have seen in our previous analysis that causes many positional problems for White. So that's why the only good way to develop the light square bishop is of course by playing the fianchetto, at least getting at least some kind of an activity in the continuation of the game. So after move g3 your opponent will probably try many times to get this maneuver, knight to e7, knight to g6, and then he could maybe take out your pawn on e5. But notice, even if he grabs your pawn on e5, he played once with the knight, twice with the knight, and probably he'll play a third time with the same piece in the opening stage, which is basically a principle that you should not break. So many tempi just in order to grab one pawn back. Meanwhile you're developing, you're playing normal stuff, you're playing simply activating moves. So as I said, in my opinion, that's why it's really bad opening this Albin Countergambit, because okay, as I said, you can get your pawn back, but it's simply too slow for my taste. So here in the continuation, bishop to g2 of course would be normal line. After bishop to g6, many times White is playing this idea, launches now this pin here against the knight. So it's not allowing here this idea is knight takes e5, knight takes e5. Of course knight to e5 is not possible because here of the pin by the queen against the knight. So that's why many times Black is trying this idea, bishop to b4. Black wants to develop the dark square bishop in a fast way, so Black is hoping now to get some kind of fast development, and now we should cover bishop to d2, not a problem. And now many times Black is making this mistakes, is saying okay, I have developed my piece now at least somewhere, and in the next couple moves I will try now knight takes e5. But here comes the tactical shot, knight takes e5, knight takes d4 is here possible because of course you cannot take with the knight, and look at this, the bishop gets liberated, queen to d4, bishop to c6. Of course p takes c6 is not possible because of queen to c6 and the fork, and the game is over. So here you can maybe try king to f8 in order to escape, but now we can play an intermediate attack against the queen, and then with bishop to f3 everything is good together. We're up two pawns, which is really incredible. In an early state of the game we have still all of our 8 pawns on the board. So the king is of course on a natural square, the king cannot be secured anymore by castling, the rook is paralyzed, and the knight is on a weird square where it cannot get into the game. So it's almost like game over here for Black. So I think you face many times this tactics. For instance, this mistake was played in an international master level, which is really wild. So even intermasters, FIDE masters are making this kind of mistake. So as I said, this is not something that Black should do. So let's see now another example, and also a common mistake that Black is making here. After move bishop to g4 you can also see this ideas. Again, we should probably proceed with g3, bishop to g2. Then of course we want to recapture after bishop to f3, knight to f3. Still will have a control of the e5 square. And then if the bishop gets on g2, if our opponent wants to give up his light square bishop, then of course our light square bishop is controlling all of the light squares in the continuation of the game. So it's not likely going to happen that black will give up the light square bishop for the knight. What he will probably do many times is a queen and bishop battery, and he will probably launch a fianchetto attack. He will probably try to attack you with this idea: queen to d7, bishop to g2, and now with bishop to h3, he's hoping that after you castle that he could launch an h4, h5, h4 attack, and then create sort of a queen and rook battery on the h file and deliver even checkmate. But you should not be worried so much, I think, from white's perspective about this attack, because you didn't make mistakes so far, and that's something that you should know in the Albin Countergambit. Although it seems a little bit weird to have this knights like this, that the bishop is temporarily blocked out, but this is not a huge problem. Here in the continuation we can simply castle, and now if our opponent plays knight to e7, again with the same idea to play knight to g6, we can go again knight to b3. We should simply attack now the pawn on d4, and many times black is making a mistake: bishop takes g2, king to g2, and now he's trying to counterattack here around the square e5, but that's exactly what is not I think a problem here. We should simply take knight takes d4. We have grabbed now this annoying pawn, and whenever you have the opportunity to grab the d4 pawn, you should do it, because this is the most annoying pawn on the board. And now you see black has lost his strength, because the d4 pawn caused many positional problems for white. Now we can breathe again, and after move knight to d4, of course your opponent could try here queenside castling, and I found also a beautiful game in FIDE master level in this particular line. Queenside castling, okay, you have your pressure on the d file, but now with bishop to e3 everything is glued together, everything is compact here. Black cannot attack anymore this position. So here knight to e5 in this game was played, but now again this idea queen to a4, because if you play here knight to d4 immediately, then you get first queen to a7. You see we are threatening even checkmate, and then afterwards we can take, of course, here the knight on d4. Also the e5 knight is hanging, so it's not a pleasant game anymore for black here. So what here black could do, and the black did here, played the bishop to c5, but now with knight to c6 the bishop is hanging, so that's why here we have bishop to e3, knight to e5, so the position is falling apart here for black. Here queen to e8 was played, but now white simply took f takes e3. Here after b takes e6 we have queen to a6, and in this position black resigned. You have to move the king here, and then you get knight to c6, it's checkmate. After king to a8 you get checkmated on a7. So really stunning stuff. I think this is something that also bothers black many times in the continuation of the game. So the main idea that you have to recognize in the Albin Countergambit, when you have the opportunity to take out the d4 pawn, you should do it. Of course, maybe in some occasions it will not work because of some other tactical possibilities by black, but our main goal is simply to get rid of this annoying pawn, because it creates, of course, a space advantage for black. Black has occupied already your side of the board, so that's why we should take it out whenever we have the possibility. So let's see now another example. Here again the fianchetto variation, bishop to e6. Now we play knight to d2. We should protect, of course, our c4 pawn. Queen to d7. Again, we have seen also in these ideas bishop to g4. That many times white is trying, black is trying this fianchetto attack by playing bishop to h3, bishop to g2, and here after knight to e7 and queen to a4, many times after move knight to g6, this is not good, because we can simply kingside castle play immediately. And now comes after move bishop to e7, which seems also like a normal idea. We can try knight to b3, also with ideas if the position allows it to play knight to c5. Now your opponent could try queenside castling, and we have reached now a common position, I think, in the Albin Countergambit, because black is hoping for that he will probably launch a flank attack h5, h4 and similar stuff, but now we can again take out this pawn on d4. So I'm pointing out many times you should watch for tactical shots around the square d4. Sometimes they're not possible, sometimes they are. Again, black is losing the game around the square d4, although it seems that now you cannot take the knight on d4, because if you take knight takes d4, but here comes the problem again, this idea queen to a2, pardon me, queen to a7 with the direct threat to play queen to a8 checkmate. If you take with the queen, of course this is not possible because the knight is protecting. So many times black is losing simply the game around the square d4. This is simply incredible when you think about it harder. The main strength many times becomes black's main weakness. So after move knight to d4, here black tried in one game knight to d4, but again queen to a7. Now black tried to create some breathing spaces for the king with the move c6, but now again bishop to e3, and there's not a good way anymore to protect this. You see, we can include the rook into the game here. In this particular scenario, knight to b3 was played, but now with bishop to b6, again the checkmate is present here. Black needs to sacrifice the queen by playing here c7. So really beautiful stuff that was possible. Maybe in one particular game here, instead of this move knight to b3, knight to e2 could have been played, but again king to h1. Again, I think black didn't solve any problems here. Bishop to b6 will happen in one particular moment and it will be game over. So you should be careful. As I said, black has to be careful around the square d4. Also, we have seen in this scenario that white can create some madness around the square. So let's see now another example. G3, again we have this view ahead. Again black is trying these ideas to launch here bishop to h3 and similar stuff, but now after queenside castling, queen to b3 can be played. This is now really beautiful preparation. Notice always that we have now again this tactical shots possibilities around the square b7, and many times bishop to h3 black is playing, but now comes really dirty trap that white can play. It's now the move e6, and this is something that you have to know here from white's perspective. In the Albin Countergambit, e6 is such a mad move, because for instance if you take here f takes e6, then of course you have lost the connection if between the queen and the bishop. If you take with the queen to e6, then of course we can play knight to g5 and you get the fork, so the bishop and the queen are hanging. So if you take here with the bishop, then the problem is now knight to e5. You see, always this bishop gets liberated. You see now the tactical battle is lost around the square b7. We will play simply here in the continuation maybe queen to d6, but now knight to c6, b takes c6, and you see now this light square problems in front of black's king. So again black is tactically lost. We can include the bishop to f4, queen to a6. We can take out this pawn. We can play rook to d1. So I think every move is working here for white. So as I said, these are really some common tactical shots. If your opponent, as I said, after move queen to b3, if he plays bishop to h3, then e6, really incredible move. You're sacrificing a pawn, but now the position explodes in the center and it's game over. So let's see now another example what can be also a common mistake here by black. Many times you can also play this move a3 because it's preparing something. I will explain you in the continuation of our series why this move a3 is also important, because we have seen with the ideas bishop to e6 and queen to d7, black is launching many times this flank attack with h5 h4. But with the move a3, we're preventing first of all this move bishop to b4, but we are preparing also b4 ourselves. b4 is very important because if your opponent castles queenside, then we want to be faster on the attack. So that's why we'll play many times the move a3, just in order to create a flank attack with b4, b5, a4, a5. So we want to be faster. We're waiting black to castle queenside, and then we want to launch a flank attack on the queen. But we'll explain these ideas in the continuation of the series in much deeper way. So here knight to e7 can be played. We can launch immediately this b4 attack, and here I think it's a perfect example that shows why this Albin Countergambit is really bad opening, because as I said, you lose simply too much time just in order to recapture one pawn. So you play once, twice, 3 times with the same piece just in order to recapture the pawn. Meanwhile, white is developing the pieces on good squares. Meanwhile, white is doing something. At least we're trying to activate our pieces here. Knight to g6 can be played if, for instance, your opponent is trying to continue the battle around the square e5. We can play simply bishop to b2. It's a perfect move, I think. Knight to e5, knight to e5, knight to e5, and now with e3 everything is pretty much fixed here. Now the knight is hanging, so black has to play something like bishop to e6 as a counter attack against this weak pawn on c4. But exactly it's not a problem. We can still play bishop to d4. Your opponent could try here knight to c4, but now with queen to c2, again we create a new threat. We're creating a new attack. Your opponent could try maybe knight to d6, bishop to d3. We're still developing. You see the pieces on good natural squares. Look at this activity by both of these bishops. Look, this bishop is out of game. If you move it, then you will probably lose the g7 pawn. Normal development again here by white. Knight to c3, rook to d1, getting the rook on the same file where the queen is maybe. So as I said, the lack of development is, I think, many times the problem in black's position. So after move bishop to d3, queen to d7, kingside castling. We can play here. I found really a beautiful game in the database after this move. Knight to f5, it's not a problem because again we just play normal development. We don't have to rush here. Here after move knight to d4, e takes d4. Notice that after queen to d4, this is now really wild because knight to b5, knight to c7 could happen, and the game would be over. So you cannot take here in the continuation. Black tried queenside castling, but now comes also really beautiful tactical shot d5. Loses game immediately here for black. Black got trapped because even if you move here to g4, the bishop, then you get f3, and if you move now to h5, then you get bishop to f5, the queen gets trapped. So you could maybe try like you could also try something like c6, but you lose of course the bishop here and then also some pawns. So queen to a4 here is, for instance, the possibility again to create some madness. So this is not good for black. Black in this particular game that I found in the database played this one. After move d5, he tried bishop to d5, but now after move knight to d5 and queen to d5, we have again this opportunity, bishop to f5. The king has to step back here from the defense of the rook, and now again I'm pointing out the lack of development is a crucial problem in the Albin Countergambit. Notice that the rooks are not connected, and now with the rook to d1, the game is over. The queen has to be sacrificed for the rook, or you lose the game on d8. So these are, I think, really some beautiful tactical shots that are possible here for white, and I think these are really common mistakes, as we have seen. For instance, this bishop to h3 move can be met with e6. Also, we have seen the natural development of white can cause simply problems of sorry, we're not going to answer that. So as I said, you should just stuck to your plan. Normal development is always your strength from white's perspective, and I think you can apply many of these methods in order to beat black in an early stage of the game, in order to beat black also in an attractive way, because we have seen these are really beautiful tactical shots. So in the continuation of the series, we will cover now also common mistakes by white. There are many mistakes also that white can do. We'll of course cover them, because if you want to maybe still study the Albin Countergambit from black's perspective, I think then also you should be familiar with some other ideas. But so far, notice in my opinion that white can have always a comfortable game if he just stuck to this plan, development, and then in one particular moment he can break and enter. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the study. As I said, in the continuation, we're studying now the common mistakes by white. We have seen now the common mistakes by black, and we have seen also the Lasker trap. So here's the link of the Lasker trap video that we have covered so far in our Albin Countergambit series. If you want to study more about the Queen's Gambit Declined, check out our whole analysis of this very nice opening. We have covered more than 50 videos about the Queen's Gambit Declined, about some other openings like the Harvard's attack, Chigorin defense, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.